Her body suddenly became heavy. She couldn't move. In the Arizona desert, teacher Sarah Johnson helplessly watched three beings descending from the triangular craft. Their large eyes were looking at her, penetrating her mind. Welcome to Shelley's Mysterious Files channel. This week, I'm sharing a terrifying encounter from 2004 in the Arizona desert, accompanied by physical evidence and missing time. Let's begin. Sarah, thank you for sharing this personal experience with us. First, could you introduce yourself?
Hello, Shelley. I'm Sarah Johnson. I'm 52 now. I was 32 back then and was an elementary school teacher in Tucson. I worked with fourth grade students teaching math and science. I had a very normal, ordinary life. I was married, had 2 children. On weekends, we usually went on family picnics. UFOs, aliens. These were all like Hollywood movies, science fiction novels to me. I never believed in such things. I would even laugh when my friends brought up such topics.
Why were you traveling on that road that day, and can you tell us what generally happened?
It was a very hot day. In July 2004, I think the temperature was around 42 to 43 degrees. Arizona summers are really very hot. There was a summer education program at school. A summer school we prepared for children with special needs. I loved working with these children. Class ended at 5 p.m. that day. Normally it would end at 4, but it had run a bit late that day. My route home was always the same, the desert road passing near Tucson. This road was both shorter and had beautiful scenery. I loved the beauty of the Arizona desert.
What were the weather conditions that evening, and were there other vehicles on the road?
The weather was incredibly clear. There wasn't even a single piece of cloud in the sky. It was a typical summer evening in the Arizona desert. That golden sunlight covered everywhere. The sun was starting to set. The sky was painted in pink and orange tones. It was actually very beautiful. There were very few vehicles on the road. Maybe a truck would pass from the opposite direction every 10 to 15 minutes. Sometimes there were motorcyclists. I always returned home at this time because both traffic was very light and the scenery was beautiful. I especially loved watching the sunset.
What was the first strange thing that happened, and what did you notice?
Very strangely, my car's headlights suddenly went out. No warning lights came on. The engine didn't stop. The radio continued working, but the headlights completely went out. "What's happening?" I said to myself. Did a fuse blow? Is there an electrical problem? I thought. I immediately slowed down because driving without headlights in the dark is very dangerous. But it wasn't completely dark yet. It was twilight. Then I started checking the control panel, trying to understand what might have happened. Just then, when I looked around the road, I saw something much stranger, something I had never seen in my life.
What did you see at that moment, and can you describe this craft in detail?
About 20 meters ahead of me, right in the middle of the road, there was a massive craft hovering in the air. At first I said, "This must be a helicopter," but it wasn't making any sound. Its shape was very strange. A perfect triangle. It was very big, maybe 15 to 20 meters wide. It had very bright lights at each corner, a mix of white and blue. But this wasn't like normal aircraft lighting. It was much more intense, almost a light that warmed my insides. The bottom was completely flat and smooth like a giant plate. I couldn't see any details on it, doors, windows, nothing. Just those bright lights and that perfect geometric shape.
Can you describe the size of this craft, and what can you compare it to?
It was very big, maybe the size of a house. Triangular, but very thick, like a giant pizza slice. The bottom was flat, the top was slightly curved. I had never seen anything like it.
Was this craft making any sound, and how was it moving?
There was a very low frequency humming, like a deep motor sound but very low tone. It wasn't moving at all. It was hanging in the air. No swaying, no vibration. It was staying very steady.
What was your first reaction when you saw this scene?
I was shocked. I thought, what is this? At first I thought it was a military aircraft, but the shape was very different. Then I got scared. I stopped, wanted to get out of the car, but something started happening.
What kind of things started happening, and what changes did you feel in your body?
Yes, something very strange. My body suddenly became very heavy. It was like something weighing tons had collapsed on me. I couldn't move. I couldn't even lift my arms.
How long did this paralysis last, and what were you thinking during that time?
It was very scary. It was like my body didn't belong to me. Everything was clear in my mind, but my body was like stone. This lasted about 5 minutes. During that time, things started coming down from the craft.
What came down from the craft, and can you describe these beings in detail?
3 beings came down. They were very short, maybe about 1.20 meters. They had very thin bodies, like sticks, but the most striking thing was their very large heads.
Do you remember the facial features of these beings, and how did they look?
They had very large eyes, black. Their heads were very big compared to their bodies. Their mouths were very small, almost invisible. Their noses were barely noticeable. They had gray skin, smooth.
Did you notice what they were wearing? And were there any clothes or accessories?
They wore very simple, gray-colored one-piece clothes. There were no seams. It was like a second skin. No accessories, pockets, buttons. They looked very simple.
What did you feel when these beings approached you, and how did you react?
I was very scared, but something strange happened. At first, my whole body was shaking. My heart was beating very fast. I was thinking, what is this? This can't be real. But as they got closer, the fear slowly started to decrease. It was like a warm wave was spreading inside me. It was a very strange feeling. Not by my own will. It was like they were trying to calm me down. My breathing became easier. My muscle tension decreased. But this scared me even more, because I could no longer control my own emotions.
How did this calming feeling come, and how do you explain this?
No, it definitely wasn't by my will. This was very clear. I was still scared in my mind, but my body was calming down as if it was under someone else's control. This effect came from their gaze. They were looking directly into my eyes, and there was a very deep calmness in those big black eyes. It was like they were sending something directly to my mind, like a kind of energy flow. I had never experienced anything like this. A very powerful effect. It was like they had accessed a part of my mind.
It was said they established telepathic communication. What kind of experience was this?
Yes, I heard voices in my head, but in a very strange way. It wasn't like normal sounds. I wasn't hearing with my ears. It was like thoughts were being placed directly inside my mind. I received a message saying, "We won't harm you." Very clear, very reassuring, but not as a sound. It came to my head like my own thought. It was very strange because I hadn't produced this thought, but at the same time it felt very familiar, as if it was something I had known for a very long time.
What language did this message come in, and how did you understand what they meant?
This was the strangest part. There was no language actually. No words, sounds, alphabet, none of that. I understood the meaning directly, as if the meaning was forming in my own brain. I didn't hear the message, "We won't harm you," as English words, but I felt that meaning completely. It was a much deeper communication, not just words. Emotions came too. Trust, calmness, the feeling that there should be no fear. All together, transferred to my mind very quickly. It was like I was connected to their thought system for a moment.
What other messages did you receive from them, and was there more communication?
I heard something else like, "Don't be afraid." There was also a message like, "We are just looking." But they were very short messages, no long conversation.
Could you ask them anything, and was mutual communication possible?
I tried. I thought, "Where are you from?" But I got no answer. It seemed like only they could send messages to me, not me to them.
What did the beings do after approaching you, and did they make physical contact?
One came very close to me, about 2 meters away. It just looked at me, didn't touch, but its gaze was very intense, like it was examining me.
How long did this examination process continue, and what could you do during this process?
I couldn't do anything. I was just standing there, couldn't move. They didn't move much either, just looked. It lasted maybe 10 minutes.
What else was happening around you during this process, and what was the atmosphere like?
It was very quiet. No insect sounds, no wind sounds. It was like time had stopped. Only that low-frequency humming continued.
What happened next, and when did the beings start to leave?
They suddenly pulled back. Without any signal, they just walked toward their craft. Very slow, fluid movements. It was like they were gliding on the ground.
What happened after they got into their craft, and how was the craft's movement?
The craft slowly started to rise, without making any sound, very smooth. Then it suddenly accelerated very fast and disappeared in the sky. It vanished from sight in a few seconds.
What condition were you in during this time, and when were you able to return to normal?
Yes, I still couldn't move. I stayed like that until the craft disappeared. Then I suddenly regained control of my body. I felt very tired.
What did you do first after regaining control of your body, and what did you discover?
The first thing I did was look at the clock. I was very surprised because the clock showed much later time. 40 minutes had passed, but I only remembered 15 to 20 minutes.
How did the 40-minute time difference affect you, and what did this discovery make you feel?
I was very surprised and scared. I thought, what happened in these 40 minutes? Where had this time gone? I couldn't remember anything.
How did you return home after that moment, and did your journey go normally?
I drove very carefully. My hands were shaking. I was very tense. When I got home, I felt very tired. It was like I had taken a very long journey.
Did you notice any physical changes in yourself when you got home?
Yes. When I looked at myself in the mirror, there was a small cut mark on the side of my nose. It wasn't there in the morning. It was suddenly there that night. Very strange.
What did this cut look like, and did it hurt?
It was like a very small, thin line. It didn't hurt, but it was very noticeable. It looked like it was made with a thin tool. It stayed for a few days, then healed.
Did anyone see this physical mark, and did you show it to anyone?
I showed it to my friend Lisa the next day. She also found it very strange because it wasn't there in the morning. She said, maybe you bumped into something. But I was sure I hadn't bumped into anything.
Did your sleep pattern and dreams change after this incident?
Yes, it got very bad. I started having constant dreams. I kept seeing those beings, that triangular craft in my dreams. I had a lot of trouble sleeping.
What are these light flashes you mentioned, and what kind of experience do you have?
Very strange. Especially at nights, I started seeing sudden bright light flashes, like someone was flashing a camera at me, but there was nothing around.
How frequently did these light flashes occur, and do they still continue?
They happened every night in the first months. It was very disturbing. Now it's much less, but still happens, occasionally. Especially when I'm stressed, it increases.
Who did you share this experience with, and who did you tell first?
I didn't tell anyone at first. I was very scared, afraid of being thought crazy. I only showed that cut mark to my friend.
Why did you decide to tell the UFO research group in 2006?
I couldn't stand it anymore. I had kept it inside for 2 years. It was very heavy. I found the Arizona UFO research group on the internet and wrote to them.
What kind of reaction did you get from that group, and did they believe you?
They approached very professionally. They said they had encountered similar cases. Especially triangular crafts were seen very often in Arizona.
How did this group help you, and did they do any research?
Yes, we talked in great detail. They suggested hypnosis therapy, but I didn't feel ready. Just talking was very helpful.
Why did you refuse hypnosis therapy? And aren't you curious about the missing time?
I'm very curious, but I'm also scared. What if I remember very scary things? What if I can't handle it? I'm not ready yet.
Did you know that UFOs were frequently seen in the Arizona desert before this incident?
I had no idea. I later learned that the Phoenix Lights incident happened in 1997. Arizona was famous for UFO activity. I wish I had known.
How do you interpret this experience now, and what purpose do you think they came for?
I think it's just curiosity. They come to study us. They didn't harm, just looked. Maybe it's something beneficial for us.
How do you understand the "we are just looking" message, and what might they be looking at?
Maybe they're studying human behavior. Maybe they're curious about our reactions. It could be like a scientific study.
How did this experience affect your worldview, and what things changed?
It changed a lot. Now I know the universe is much bigger. I know we're not alone. Sometimes it's scary, but sometimes it's exciting.
Did you experience other similar paranormal events after this experience?
Only those light flashes. I haven't seen another UFO, but sometimes I feel like I'm being watched, especially when traveling by car in the desert.
Sarah, thank you so much for courageously sharing this experience.
Thank you, Shelley. This conversation was very good for me. Maybe others will find courage too.
Sarah Johnson's 2004 experience in the Arizona desert is an example of a classic triangular UFO encounter. The 40 minutes of missing time, physical evidence, and ongoing effects show the seriousness of this case. Considering Arizona's place in UFO activity history, Sarah's story becomes even more meaningful.